Yo, what's up? Guys, I don't even really know how to start this video, so I'm just gonna go out and say it. A lot of you requested that I do a video on Nan Slapper by Bou, which is just the most ridiculous song ever. I mean, look, hey, I love everything that's weird. I listen to Belt and Jump Up in my free time, but Nan Slapper is that's just noise. That's not even drum bass, man. That's obviously a joke, but a lot of you wanted it, so let's go over how you can make something similar, and I'm gonna say similar to Nan Slapper, because I'm not gonna pretend like I nailed this, but I think we got pretty close, and I think that also by trying to get to something that is this ridiculous, there's a couple of cool lessons along the way. So I'm gonna stop talking. I'm gonna dive right in. All right, let's go. All right, so let's start with how the whole thing sounds, right? I stole the intro and the drop is what we're gonna make.
Great, slap man's nan out to space.
Oh my god. All right, that's it. That's what you wanted. I would say we got about like 70 to 80% close, but at least we got something as fucking coarse as that main. I don't even know if it's a lead. Maybe it's not a lead. Maybe it's just noise, I think. So let's have a look at what we got here. So basically we have the main sound, which is called the slapper, which is this, right? And then we have this little hit in the beginning, which is just this actually sort of this modified version of the slapper, actually just on that first bass hit. Then we have a sub that's nothing special. And then we have that, which is just, it sounds like this. It's just some like detuned shit. And then of course we got some drums. So let's dive in. All right. So let's start with the easy stuff. Let's start with the drums. Very simple kick and snare pattern with just a hi-hat. This whole song is actually super simple. Just the kick, normal drum bass pattern. Same for the snare. Snare, however, is more like a clap if you listen to it. It's more like a clappy kind of thing. And one thing that I found, I don't know how this is going to turn out in actual mixing, but you can just take a snare sample and just put a bunch of overdrive on it and turn it into a clap. Not the most beautiful thing, but yeah, that's pretty interesting. And then yeah, we got a humanized hi-hat playing on the offbeat, right? So boom. And the hi-hat is, I just put some of this humanization on it because that's what Bou does. None of his hits kind of sound the same. He makes it as if it's a real drummer. So if you haven't watched the video where I explain all about humanization on hi-hats, go check that out right over there somewhere. And then the last thing that we need for hygiene factor before we start getting to the gritty sounds is there's this white noise coming in, which you can hear come in on the first clap. So we want something like that, but a white noise by itself is too harsh. That's not really what we want. We want something a lot more washed out. So we're gonna grab some convolution reverb to put it in a really big place. And I have no idea what a rundel nave is, but it makes it sound a lot better. So lots of convolution reverb, a very big dry wet to wash it out. Big decay, big size, just make it sound more like an echo. That's better. And then we also notice that actually it's panned to one ear, so we can also do that. We can grab a utility and we can make it a little bit wider as well to even sort of put it to the sides of the ears even more, right? Make it more stereo and then balance it more to the right or to the left, whatever you want. And then I think because it needs a long tail, right? So we're gonna give it another reverb, but then just like up the decay a lot so that it continues throughout this whole drop. Okay, that's that. Now let's get started on the slapper. So a lot of this is experimental sound design, guys. There's no real technique to coming to this like there would be going to like a really good pluck or a strong sort of saw lead. But nevertheless, let's see how we achieved this sound. So let's turn everything off. All right, so let's start with a sub. Reason we want that is you can hear that there's actually a sine wave playing throughout the thing. You can hear this. So we're going to put a sine wave in for that. That is not actually like super low. Then essentially what we want is we want something that basically oscillates really low, and we want to really sort of make that super, super gritty. And one way to make things more gritty is by using FM from A and then using the PWM button to not really make that much, like to have a lot of the FM just be nothing. This is going to make sense when you hear what's going on. So right now we have this basic shape, which is actually just a saw wave from the basic shapes at a PWM of 24%. So all that does, right, is add this sort of flatness to it. We got that at 24%. Just a saw wave, no unison, nothing, just down 2 octaves. And then we're going to use that to modulate, to frequency modulate oscillator B. Oscillator B is this really weird ass wavetable, but you'll get a similar sound with anything that looks like a sine wave. Even a sine wave will work, but this is basically like a really distorted sine wave, right? If you look at it, and that's gonna give it that sort of trilling, that sort of feel to it. So we're gonna use FM from A, right, with this basic shape, and it's going to increase sort of the pitch of the trillingness. So right now it sounds like this. That's pretty low, right? Oh, by the way, we've got this thing at a wavetail position of 83. This is just some noise. And another thing quickly to note is because the sound kind of comes up, we want to adjust for that in the envelope as well. So we want to make this sort of upwards shape that doesn't go like, but it goes like, it comes up a hill, essentially. So this sound clearly needs a lot of processing, but it is in its essence sort of that kind of thing that we need. It just needs to become a lot more pronounced. So we can take an LFO like this and just mess around with it a little bit and let it control the level of oscillator A, and we can add some distortion. Pretty heavy distortion is what we want to sort of add some volume and some grit to it, and also let it control that. And actually now this is pretty much just a straight line, but you can sort of move this line around and there's going to be a lot of different timbres. And you can turn this level knob up, you can turn the mix all the way up, but we need some volume on this baby. So actually before the distortion, we're gonna put a compressor, and we're gonna up the gain a lot on this compressor, and that's gonna bring out the sound a little bit more. But what we want is we want the sound to not be just one sort of long machine note. We want it to be cut into really super small pieces. It shouldn't be, it should be sort of, it should go sort of in and out of volume. So what we're going to do is we're going to get an LFO 2, and we're going to get a filter, and we're going to put it at a very strict cutoff on a low filter, and we're going to apply this LFO 2 to the cutoff of this. And what it's going to do is it's just going to make it go whoa, 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 but very, very fast, because we're going to deactivate this BPM, and we're going to go to put it at a very fast rate. So, and you just need to find the right rate to what it sounds, but it's going to make the sound a little bit more like individually followed up notes than just one long big note, which is kind of what causes that. So yeah, this already sounds pretty good, right? If we were to turn up the volume, that already sounds pretty good, but we're going to turn down the volume because we're going to do some more distortion. Just to show you real quick what this PWM, what it contributes is if we turn this off, you just hear this. Let's turn up the volume. You just hear this. But when we turn it on, it makes it much more gritty. And we can even play around, right? Right now it's at 24%, but so that's another cool control to play with to find something cool. And then you can also see that this fine is mapped to LFO 1, but actually it's disabled, so you can ignore that. All right, let's turn on the volume again, and let's go do some post-processing, because we can add a few things to make this a bit more interesting. So first of all, we can add some saturation to those lower mids, make it sound more gritty, because right now we got, but maybe we can make that a little bit more enthused. See, that's going to make it sound even more coarse. And then another thing that you might want to do, because this is a very messy sound, you could go around and get an EQ and sort of maybe see if scooping out some frequency here makes it sound a little bit better. I found that actually scooping out a little bit of this sort of like fundamental-ish part makes a little bit of a difference. Although that might get lost when we're going to EQ it later. But moving around this 3 changes the timbre of it a bit. So that's something interesting that you can do. And then I thought, well, in the original song, it sounds like there's movement. the sound isn't exactly the same all the time. So one thing we could do is take one of these notches and actually have it move over time. So you can take the frequency of this and automate it to go up so that it moves over time and creates some movement in this otherwise very harsh sound, which will become more pronounced when we add some more compression and saturation. So speaking of compression, let's throw a compressor on it, and we want to have some attack here so that the initial transient hits differently, so that we again get a little bit of movement, that the initial transient doesn't get compressed and the rest does, and then auto release here. Maybe just to bring out a little bit more of that volume. And then we can add an amp. An amp is just going to make it more gritty. It's a means of saturation, but a pretty unique means of saturation. And actually, all of these options work, but I found that blues makes it sound really gritty. And you can play around with the dry wet as well. And then I recognize that in the original song, it's so loud, it's so pronounced. And when I think about things that are pronounced, one of the ways to sort of try and achieve a more pronounced feel is by accentuating certain frequencies. And you can use multiband dynamics for that, which is essentially, it's almost the same as OTT. It just brings out certain dynamics. So I accentuated some of these mids here, and I just turned up the volume of the mids and the highs a little bit. And the difference is quite profound versus... See, it just makes it more aggressive by taking out those mids, because that's where the power is in this particular sound. And then last but not least, we can mess around with sort of the timbre that or maybe the frequency or the formant that it hits at. So we can actually get a free formant shifter. If you don't know what formant shifting is, if this is a waveform, the beginning of the waveform is the pitch that determines which note you play it at. But the rest of it, you can shift it without shifting the first part. So it'll stay at the same note, but the frequencies after that first fundamental are going to change, and you can do some really cool stuff with that. So I got M Auto Pitch, which is just a free formant shifter from Melda Productions, which you can just use, and I upped the formant a little bit, and the difference is like this, and it just makes it a little bit more aggressive. So shifting some of those frequencies in the back of the waveform more towards the higher spectrum just makes it a little bit more aggressive. But we can change that as well if we want. Make it even more aggressive, but it also becomes a bit messier, right? So that's something that you can do. And then last but not least, there, of course, you want to add some reverb to it with short decay, short mix, just to give it some roominess. And you can do a number of other things to create some movements. You can add a shifter and sort of detune it a little bit. So I got this fine knob on here that just makes it sound a little bit more dissonant, which is what we're looking for. You can hear that it's off tune now, which is I think also what the original sound has. And you could also say, maybe we want to change the fine of a shifter over time. So we automate this line and make it sort of make the sound evolve over time a little bit more in terms of pitch. I didn't like what that did because it made it sound kind of delayed, but you can mess around with that, find a good option too. But let's not do that for now. Now the end result is this. It's just like a long fart. That repeats twice at exactly the same rate. All right, then we have what I've called the support slap, which is just a modified version of that first of the Nan Slapper sound. That's just going to hit right after the kick. So it's going to be or whatever. It sounds like this. And actually, it's exactly the same patch, completely everything copied, but everything that's in the effects that we just put behind this one, all of that is actually taken out. You can see here that I did copy it, but I just turned all of it off. And then I just added more noise because I wanted to achieve a higher timbre. And this is, a lot of artists do this. They'll take their main sound and they'll repurpose it for other means. And they'll just add a different kind of saturation or a different kind of timbre, or they might formant shift it a little bit, or they'll somehow destroy or change the sound. They'll go back into the Serum patch, maybe change one of the waveforms, but leave the rest of the processing the same. And that's how you can keep a nice consistency throughout your track. In this case, I'm not going to say that I came super close to the actual bass hit, but I think it is sort of the same approach. So what we got here is, and it's literally just the same patch, but then with a bunch of erosion, so adding noise, and then 2 big overdrives, and then more saturation. So it's basically just a destroyed version of the Nan Slapper sound, with some of the highs taken out. And yeah, I played around a little bit with a shifter to get the right timbre, which basically just, you know, detunes it and changes the pitch of it to sort of fit the vibe of the track. And then, of course, some reverb. All right, then what we need to do is we need to actually add a low pass to all of these, because there's a big fat sub under this. So both the support slap and the main slapper need a low pass, because we're going to put a big sub under it. And the sub is very simple. It's literally just a sine wave that is distorted and filtered, and it's letting through a little bit of the tonality of the sine, because that's what we hear in the original song also, and it just adds a little bit more character also to the song, just with a bunch of glue compression to get the volume up and the dynamics out, which just sound like this. And that's going to tuck nicely under those two elements. And then the final element is just actually a very roller style sound. For that wee 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 sound, it's literally just a preset from some pack that I found somewhere for roller samples. It's very simple. It's just a frequency modulated sine wave that's got a bunch of hyper added onto it, a bunch of the higher frequencies accentuated, and some, you know, sort of creative filtering going on and some drive. But that's pretty much it. And the only thing you need to do is you need to get that wow 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 sound by using one of these on the level of everything. So if you want to copy these settings and sort of look around for yourself, then this is basically it. These are the effects, and this is the settings for the oscillator, and it's playing these notes. And so another thing that's worth noting is I think what Bou did is he bounced whatever he had out to audio, and he reversed some of the samples, because you can hear here that it sounds like it's reversing. So you can do that, right? You can bounce it out to audio, and then you can take some of these samples and reverse them, maybe fade them in and make it sound a little bit more interesting. Like, for example, like this, right? It sounds a little bit more chopped, a little bit more, you know, dissonant. All right, so that's it. And the end result sounds like this.
Slap man's nan out to space.
Oh my God. Let me know what else you want to see in the comments down below. And also, let me know what you thought of this song, because I still think this is ridiculous. All right, I'll see you in the next video.